Thor's unlucky travels. I'm now going to do a series of myths which follow each other, from Thor's unlucky travels to Jotunnheim, to him being teased by his father on his way back, and then getting in a tiff with Aegir and fetching a cauldron to brew beer in. All of these events follow each other, so it's a good excuse to go through these known and lesser known myths in a row. Oh, and I might say some words differently, as I'm trying to stay closer to Old Norse. Let's start. Once upon a time, Thor went off to kill giants. Loki came along, because Asgard was peaceful and boring. They were travelling in Thor's chariot, pulled by his 2 goats. I'm going to have a chance to tell you more about them at last. The goats are called Tangrisnir and Tangsjostr. When they fly through the sky, thunder roars around them and the sky grows dark. They have other magical abilities which we'll soon see. The 2 gods drove all day and, as the evening came, they decided to stop for the night. They spotted a human farm and landed next to it. The farmer was called Egil, and he had a wife and 2 children. His children were called Fjolvi and Rosva. They were happy to invite the gods inside for the night, because you never show people who can smash you to pieces that you're not happy to see them. But they didn't have much food to give to their guests. "No worries," said Thor. "I'll take care of supper." He brought forward his 2 goats and slaughtered them. He carefully took off their skin and cooked their meat into a pot. When the broth was ready, he said, "Everyone is welcome to eat this. I need a lot more food than all of you put together, so I'll have a full goat for myself, and you can share the other one. When you've finished with your meal, put the bones on the goat skins. Whatever you do, don't break the bones." Everyone sat down to eat and made polite comments like, "Wow, this is so tasty," and "I didn't realize the great god of war was so good at cooking." Loki was getting a bit annoyed by this point, because compliments were always reserved to Thor, as well as the best drinks and the best pieces of meat. Of course, no one was telling him how wonderfully skilled he was, were they? So when he saw the young boy Fjolvi eyeing one of the bones thoughtfully, he decided to do some mischief. He said, "Go for it. I know you'd like to taste the marrow." "But Thor said we shouldn't," said Fjolvi. "Look how much he's stuffing into his mouth. It's a bit rich to ask you not to eat what's inside the bones when we only get 1 goat to share." "Yes, but you're basically the god of trouble, so, it's not really advised to listen to you. No offense." "Yes, but I also help the Aesir get Mjolnir and cool stuff like that," said Loki. "And come on, will he really notice 1 bone?" So Fjolvi broke the bone and ate the juicy marrow inside, and then quickly put it on the goat skin with the others, hoping it would go unnoticed, which just goes to show he wasn't a very bright lad. So the next day, Thor got up at dawn, before anyone else was up. He used Mjolnir to bless the 2 goat skins, and both goats sprung back to life. This is an interesting moment, for several reasons. Here, the goats have similar characteristics to the magical boar in Odin's Hall, and this doubles up with Thor's life powers, and it links to Mjolnir's powers to consecrate and purify. So the 2 goats came back to life, but because Fjolvi had broken a bone, one of them had a broken leg. It limped as Thor harnessed it to his chariot. When Thor noticed the limp, he was furious. He grew to his full Aesir height, and his eyes became dark as the sky before a storm. Egil, who had good survival instincts, immediately fell to his knees and begged for forgiveness. The humans all grovelled before Thor. Although he was angry, he didn't have a bad heart, so he decided not to kill everyone, which, for Thor, counts as an act of mercy. "But I'll take payment for this," said Thor. "I shall take both your children." Now, this might seem a bit tough, but taking children as servants isn't actually that bad. It meant they would get to serve a god, and he would clothe and feed them, and some of his glory would shine down on them. So it wasn't too bad a deal for people dumb enough to go against Thor's orders. "Oh well, that was fun," said Loki. "Now let's get back to Asgard and have a feast." "We're going to Jotunnheim," said Thor, "with or without my chariot. We'll go on foot if need be." Loki, who'd imagined this was the end of their adventure, tried to argue. "You can't do that. You really want to drag these 2 kids to Jotunnheim? They'll get killed." "Maybe I'll only take the boy, for now," said Thor. "The girl can wait for me here, with my goats." And so they left on foot, followed by Fjolvi. It sounds like it was a long walk. They went all the way to the sea, and then crossed the sea, and then they walked a bit more. How they crossed the sea isn't made clear, but they found a way. On the other side, they found a dense wood with no houses to be seen. They had no idea where they would sleep that night. They were thinking they would have to sleep rough in the midst of Jotunnheim when at last they found a house. It was a strange house, with a great main room and 4 long rooms attached to it. There was also a 5th square room where Loki and Thjalfi went to sleep. Thor settled for the night, when suddenly the ground shook and he heard rumbling in the sky. "What was that?" said Loki, jumping to his feet. "I have no idea," said Thor. He looked around the house, but he couldn't find anything suspicious. The rumbling and shaking started again, but they couldn't find its source. In the end, they just decided to sleep it off. I mean, the house seemed solid enough, and you can't start getting upset each time there's a bit of an earthquake. That's just being fussy. Thor was obviously an early riser, because he was the first out of the house the next morning. He immediately spotted the source of the noise. There was a giant snoring right next to their house. He was a Jotun, but he was also massive, an actual giant lying stretched out across the ground. Some people have mentioned this giant Jotun when I talked about the Jotun's size. I did some research on the subject, and it turns out this myth is a bit of a mix. Some of it might be authentic, but the fairy tale elements are probably add-ons. All the things that come in threes, for example, there's quite a lot of those to come. All the allegories, plus the size of the Jotun, probably aren't authentic. Also, Loki doubles up in this myth as Loki and Loki for some reason, which adds to the confusion. In some versions of this story, Thor finds Loki bound in chains, as Loki will be as he awaits the end of times. So there's probably an old myth behind this tale, but it's been rewritten and changed too much for the original story to be identified. The version I'm giving you is from Snorri's Prose Edda, but that doesn't tell us what he was using as inspiration when he wrote it. Anyway, back to the story. Thor took out Mjolnir, because that was how he usually dealt with Jotun, but before he could smash it across the giant's face, the giant woke up. Feeling a bit guilty at trying to kill someone before even saying hello, Thor pretended he'd just been giving Mjolnir some sunshine. "Hi," he said. "Who are you then?" "Hello," said the giant. "I am Skrimir. You don't need to tell me who you are. I've seen the posters. Welcome to Jotunnheim, Thor, son of Odin. Have you come alone?" That's when Loki and Thjalfi came out of the house, yawning and stretching. "Ah, I see you've slept in my glove," said Skrimir, and so they had. Loki and Thjalfi had been sleeping in the thumb. Thor pretended to be unruffled by all of this, but he was feeling quite humiliated at not having recognized the house for what it was. "Shall we walk together for some time?" said Skrimir. "Where are you bound?" "I was going to check out the Jotun Loki," said Thor grumpily. "I can carry your food in my bag if you want," said Skrimir. "Yeah, whatever," said Thor. "Come along if you want." So Skrimir put the food in his bag and they travelled together. Thor was sulking, so Loki and Thjalfi stayed subdued and silent. Only Skrimir seemed pleased about the turn of events. Travelling together must have been difficult, considering the differences in size and the fact that they were dragging a poor normal human boy with them, but they managed it until nightfall. As the sun started setting, Skrimir said, "I'm feeling tired, I'll go to sleep, but feel free to take some food out of the bag." And with those words, he lay down to rest. Thor picked up the giant's bag and tried to open it. It wouldn't open. He tugged on the knot harder and harder, but the knot only became tighter and tighter. Loki tried to advise, getting less angry with the bag and trying to work out how the knot had been made, but Thor was so furious and hungry, he just pulled it until it was too tight for anyone to do anything about it. And then he threw the bag aside. "That's it, I'm killing this thing," he said. "Not really his fault you couldn't open the bag," grumbled Loki. "What did you say?" "Nothing, nothing. Go on, do your stuff." Thor walked up to Skrimir and smashed Mjolnir down on his head. Although he'd hit with all his might, Skrimir just frowned and woke up. "Did a leaf fall on me?" he asked. "It must have, it woke me up. Are you okay, Thor? Getting ready for bed, I would imagine." "Yeah, right," said Thor. "Getting ready for bed." He was stunned by this turn of events. Thor wasn't used to Mjolnir not getting him what he wanted. He went to lie down next to Loki and Thjalfi, but he couldn't sleep. He kept wondering which bit of hit it hard on the head he'd done wrong. In the middle of the night, not able to bear it anymore, he went back to Skrimir. He aimed more carefully this time time and brought down Mjolnir with all his strength. He felt Mjolnir hit something and dig deep into it, but when he took a step back, the Jotun was fine. Skrymir woke up again. "Did an acorn fall on me?" he wondered out loud. Then he saw Thor. "Surely it's a bit early to get up, Thunderer." Thor mumbled that he'd just gone to relieve himself and that he was heading back to bed now. He went and sat down next to his companions. They were both very good at pretending to sleep. Thor spent the night wondering how come Skrymir was still alive. Thor wasn't very good at lateral thinking. His reasoning usually was, "I hit it, it dies." He couldn't quite figure out, "I hit it, it doesn't die." As dawn slowly crept over the hills, Thor decided he would try one last time. He moved towards Skrymir, thinking that he'd hit him so hard before that the skull must be cracked, at least, and that another good hit would smash it for good. He brought down Mjolnir and felt it sink deep into the head right up to the handle. But still, when he took a step back, Skrymir didn't even have a bruise. He yawned and said, "Are there birds roosting above me? I'm sure something fell on me." He glanced at Thor and smiled. "Already up? Shall we go then?" Thor mumbled a yes. He was so baffled he barely spoke until Skrymir parted ways with them. "My road leads me north," said Skrymir as they stopped at a crossroads, "but you will find Loki's Hall to the east. Let me warn you before you go any further. They aren't as nice as me over there, and they won't tolerate any boasting or complaining from small creatures like you." Then Skrymir left, and none of them said it would be nice to see him again or hoped they would cross ways once more. For one thing, they were starving. They hadn't been able to eat for a full day. They all agreed to quickly get to Loki's Hall and hope for drink and food. They walked until they found the gates to Utgarth. The gates were massive, rising so high that neither of them could see over it. Thor tried to force the gates open, but they wouldn't budge. He tugged at the iron bars furiously, exhausting himself. "It's not your day, Thor," said Thjalfi. "It's not your week from what I've seen," sneered Loki. "If you're so smart, you get us in there," grumbled Thor. Loki looked closely at the gate and noticed that they could slip between the bars and into the stronghold. So instead of smashing open the door, they squeezed between the bars. Thor wasn't happy about this, but at least they were inside. The Aesir, the Jotun and the human walked into Utgarth. Stop me if you know this one. And this is the end of part 1. I hope you liked it. The next episode is Loki's Games, and it'll tell you what happened to our valiant gods, plus one human, when they get inside the hall. But I'm afraid you'll have to wait a bit for that. As the next 2 Mondays are Christmas and the New Year, I thought I would do a 2-week break while everyone is on holidays. I'll kickstart again on the 8th of January, so see you then. Have a happy Christmas, everyone!